On Tinder, I met Michael, who appeared to be personable and stood out for his insightful talks. He asked me to his house for supper after 4 or 5 dates, which was a huge step toward developing a more close relationship. After getting to know each other for almost a month, I felt prepared to consider developing a closer relationship that went beyond our interactions in public. I arrived at his house just after 9 o'clock, when the sky had already become black. My expectation was tinged with a little jittery excitement, because Michael had assured me that we would have a delicious home-cooked meal. I saw 2 automobiles parked in the driveway as I walked up to his house. He hadn't discussed his living status previously, but the image made him wonder. I parked on the curb since I was curious to see if he had any housemates or possibly even visitors. He gave me a warm smile, and his demeanor exuded familiarity as he welcomed me. My original impression disintegrated as soon as I entered. The interior was quite different from what I had expected, with a jumble of clutter, items thrown around carelessly, and a general air of confusion. I forced a scowl as I followed him into the kitchen, where dinner had already been served out. I decided to ignore the unsettling juxtaposition between his well-polished charm and the chaotic scene for the time being. The dinner presentation was lovely, but the thought of his prepared food made my stomach turn. I excused myself by saying that I didn't feel good in my stomach and declined the lunch. But his response was unexpected. He appeared startled, as if my refusal had knocked him off his feet. I struggled to keep a brave face while offering a flimsy smile as I felt the pressure of his attention on me. I struck up a discussion, probing about his day and any recent events in his life in an effort to diffuse the tension. He responded in a stilted manner, and he looked elsewhere. His sporadic glances about the room, as if he were waiting for something or someone else to emerge, just added to my anxiety. My curiosity was piqued by the cars parked in the driveway. He gave me a cryptic remark when I asked him about housemates. He acknowledged that they were gone for the weekend, but something about his tone and the momentary expression in his eyes suggested that he was hiding something more. I decided not to pursue it further despite my reservations, blaming them on my vivid imagination. Michael's actions became more and more troubling. He put his phone on the table and excused himself to answer a call. A message from an unknown number caught my attention as my eyes darted to the screen, sending chills down my spine. Has she shown up? My anxiety increased as I attempted to understand the ramifications of this foreboding message. A sudden muffled thud resounded from the upstairs. When Michael came back, he fixed his eyes on mine. His features were enigmatic and strangely mixed with dread and urgency. He quickly climbed the steps, leaving his phone at the bottom. I felt compelled to leave the house right away, so I did so without pausing for breath. As I struggled with a barrage of emotions, the drive passed me by quickly. I immediately called the police to report my worries and suspicions. They questioned Michael and his roommate as a result of their later inquiry, but no concrete evidence supporting my suspicions was found. The police promises failed to soothe my anxiety, and I began to feel plagued by the mysterious text message and the terrifying crash upstairs. As my imagination raced through the possibilities, days turned into sleepless nights. Is it possible that I avoided a dangerous situation, or was I just becoming paranoid? My every choice was clouded by the enigmatic message and unpleasant sounds, which kept playing over and over in my head. Despite the authorities' findings, I can't get rid of the nagging suspicion that Michael's outward appearance covered up something far worse. Did I really come out unscathed, or am I still caught in a web of mystery as I try to make sense of the aftermath? I was a 20-year-old college sophomore sailing the turbulent Tinder sea with naivete in quest of adventure. I went back to my dorm room on a particularly dull Friday afternoon and started browsing potential dates online. One man emerged from the virtual water as talks waned. After an hour of texting, he boldly proposed a date for Sunday night as our rapport swiftly developed. I was captivated by the spontaneity, which led to an odd agreement. Our communications persisted over the weekend, raising interest in our meeting. When Sunday came, We met at a quaint cafe. We had a charming and humorous first coffee talk that inspired us to discuss our future plans for a meeting. Despite residing across town, he volunteered to bring me back to the college as we parted ways. I agreed against my better judgment, since I was pulled to his fascinating appeal. As I sat in the passenger side of his red vintage Mustang, it exuded a sense of mystery. However, as the miles passed, a dreadful silence fell upon the car, imbuing the air with tension and unease. I made small conversation in an effort to lighten the mood, but his comments became less interested as time went on. His steadfast refusal to make eye contact with me increased a menacing sensation of detachment that was already gnawing at me. He turned off the road leading to my campus and into an unfamiliar neighborhood, which made my heart beat faster. My stomach dropped with dread as I questioned his intentions, but all I got in response was an unnerving stillness. When he refused to respond to my questions and kept looking straight ahead, my anxiety increased. With each second that passed, my heart beat faster and faster. When he turned into a dimly lighted alley, my heartbeat accelerated even further as the bleakness amplified the anxiety that had already taken hold of me. I asked him to let me out while trying to contain my growing panic. "We're almost there," he said in a monotone, as if it were written. I searched for my phone as the automobile made its way into the night, hoping to get in touch with someone who could assist. As I dialed 911, my hand shook and the dispatcher's voice was hardly heard due to my growing fear. I clung to the phone with a mixture of resolve and desperation, believing it would be my lifeline. My desperate battle came to an abrupt halt when the automobile jolted to a stop. As I turned to face him, my eyes widened in fright. The man had a twisted grin on his face that was unnerving. He reached into the back seat and pulled out a form covered in a bloody cloth, which made me jump with fear. My thoughts raced as I tried to process the atrocities I was seeing, paralyzed by shock. The silence was broken by his ghoulish murmur. He hissed, "You're going to join my collection," the weight of his words resonating like a menacing tune. My fate was bound up with the menacing shape he revealed, and as his objectives became chillingly plain to me, a chilly reality overtook me. I swung for the door with all the effort I could muster, my pulse racing in my chest. I pushed myself out of the car and onto the chilly, harsh pavement in a fit of rage. As I struggled to stand up, my phone dropped from my hands, and the dispatcher's voice seemed far away as I fixed my eyes on the Mustang. The malicious nightmare's incarnation, the figure emerged from the car with a distorted, frightening form. I was overcome with fear as he moved closer, and I was forced to run into the maze-like darkness. My mind raced as adrenaline raced through my veins. With every turn and breath, the somber reality that survival was my only option resounded in my ears. In pursuit of his nefarious goal, his menacing footsteps drew nearer with a terrible cadence. Finally, a flash of light revealed my only exit, a little gap leading to a busy roadway. My heart was racing in time with the footsteps that had been following me just moments earlier as I fell to the ground, gasping for air. My spine tingled as I heard sirens in the distance penetrating through the darkness. When the police showed up, they enclosed me in a safe haven. Their investigation turned up only ambiguous information: a wrecked Mustang with no trace of the stranger who had planned this horrific meeting. The shadows of that night still cling to me, reminding me constantly of the horrors that can lay beyond the surface of seemingly harmless ties, even if my escape marked my redemption. The mystery surrounding the faceless man continues to linger, leaving me permanently haunted by his evil intentions. My girlfriend left me right after we broke up. Only 3 weeks have passed since then. I knew there wasn't enough time to mend, but I was in a desperate situation and thought I'd give Tinder a shot. I spoke to 2 girls despite the limited time I had, hoping for a new beginning. One girl's profile picture with her beautiful red hair and alluring green eyes attracted my attention. Our text discussions, however, felt flat and lifeless, without the vigor to keep the conversation going. Despite my doubts, I held out hope that a face-to-face meeting might produce a different result. This time, it was another female I connected with. I decided on a romantic coffee shop date and texted her when I got there. Anxiety and exhilaration both flooded me as I waited outside. She didn't show up though, and the minutes dragged on for an eternity. I finally called her after waiting for 30 minutes. She replied before hanging up the phone without saying anything. I felt intense annoyance and embarrassment, which brought up memories of the first time a girl ghosted me. I returned home, discouraged, and sat on my couch to unwind. Around 9 o'clock, exhausted, I fell asleep. My phone was gone when I got out of bed. I panicked and started looking for it. I then noticed that the rear door had been pulled open just a crack, as if someone had wanted to avoid making a noise. This finding gave me the chills. I had always secured my doors, and it terrified me to think that someone may break in while I was sleeping. I locked the door, shut it, and started going through the home, room by room, making sure I was the only one there. The possibilities sent my mind racing, and my level of uneasiness increased. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that someone had been in my home while I searched the first level. I went upstairs but saw nothing out of the ordinary there. I got chills at the thought of someone hiding in the shadows. Before entering my bedroom, I looked around each room. I noticed a peculiar feeling as I turned to glance around. There was peaceful, gentle breathing coming from inside my closet. I stood still, unable to speak or think. Panic overcame me as the air seemed oppressive about me. I sprinted out of the house and down the stairs, calling the police as I went to the nearest gas station. When the police arrived, the burglar had left, but the anxiety persisted. Even though I had a new phone, my old one was still missing, and I continued to feel violated and unprotected. A few weeks later, as I was browsing Tinder once more, I felt something. The female who had ghosted me had recognized she might have been involved after putting the puzzle pieces together. She might have followed me home that evening and played a role in the break-in. The disappearance of the phone seemed to be an effort to stop me from calling the police or disclosing her involvement. I was left wondering who the girl was and what she and the other person were doing in my home as I slept after the occurrence. I couldn't get rid of the anxiety that had crept into me. The horrifying thought of someone stealthily entering my house while I slept tormented me.